What's up, everyone? Good morning. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Oops, let me just kind of readjust my camera here. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is April the 7th. Overall markets yesterday, of course, very low volume actually compared to one of the lower volume days of the year, with, of course, the announcement coming up soon, or the end of the peace talk. So we'll have a little bit more of, wait one second, sorry. Okay, seems like we had some news here in the pre-market as well, which we'll kind of talk about in a second. But yeah, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's go on to the economic calendar. Before we do that, good morning. What's up, B Roots? Good morning, Andy. Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Cody, Maria, Hosman, P1, Chris. Good morning, Gerald. Good morning, Robert, 50, Deuce, Lamit, Cinna, Knight, Mr. Mozzie, Cosmic, Sam, True. Good morning, Todd. What's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Seems like here, as you can see in the pre-market, we're kind of dropping underneath key levels. We do have some news that just came in, which we'll talk about here in a second. But let me pull up the Forex factor and we'll talk about the economic calendar. Okay, let's go on to the economic calendar to talk about exactly all the news that we had. The major thing here is the news that we had. It actually just came in a minute ago, which we'll talk about. One of your videos, you said you prefer areas of previous day highs and previous day lows instead of creating level. How do you determine how big the areas? It's really just based more off context, but I have a full video, as I mentioned. If you click the free watch list in the description below, it'll take you to a free Telegram, and it's the pinned video, and you can check that out. It basically is a full live stream outlining exactly how I draw those key levels. But as I mentioned, we just had some news that came in about 2 minutes ago that's dropping the whole market here. Trump just basically tweeting out, as you can see, if we were just to read it, right, whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back. Don't want that to happen, but it probably will. We'll find out tonight. So, as I mentioned earlier, let me kind of scroll down here. But basically, we do have the announcement, Trump's decision, that is going to happen tonight. He extended it. So now it is going to come to Tuesday. So basically, we will have an announcement for the war tonight, which is going to be fairly important. As you can see, we had some other news in the pre-market and the overnight session as well, kind of dropping the market towards the downside. Now I can see we're right at our previous day low. So yesterday, very tight range here in the overall markets. In the pre-market, went from our previous day highs back down in towards our previous day lows. So another session where, of course, we have a pretty big move in the overnight session, previous day high back down towards your previous day lows. So now coming into market open, what are the key levels that we're going to have? Before we do that as well, right, we do have some more. We don't have any red folder news today. We just kind of have an orange folder news event. But the main thing, as I mentioned, is the war decision that we have tonight. So that is something to keep in mind. As for the overall markets, let's go on to the ES. Starting off on this one here on the higher time frames, as you can see, we're just kind of holding this level here, which is that 6640 on the higher time frames. As you can see, we have multiple touches off this general area. Was not able to break above this yesterday. Kind of rejected off this level, but didn't really have too much follow through back towards the downside. And as you can see here in the pre-market, breaking above our 6640, rejecting off this level, and now we're trying to gravitate back towards the downside underneath that previous day low. So as you can see, we're kind of building up liquidity here. If we can break back underneath the 6640, hold underneath this level, we can see a push back down in towards our pre-market lows that we created here yesterday, or over the weekend. So for the ES, same levels as yesterday. Basically, yeah, exact same levels as yesterday. Key levels that we're going to have marked out 66.50. If we do want to see some upsides, going to have to break above, hold above that level for any sort of continuation towards the highs. If you do want to see some downside, preferably underneath our previous day lows, hold for continuation lower, right? If you're looking at it on the 15-minute time frame, you can see how tight of consolidation that we've had. If you look at it on the 1 hour time frame, kind of just right in towards our key level here, which is one of our previous retest levels that we had all the way back from March the 8th here on the ES futures. If you go on the SPY chart, as you can see, very key level here as well, which is our 658. Key levels coming to market open is going to be that 658 along with our previous day lows. So if you do want to see some upside here coming to market open, needs to reclaim back above that 658, hold above that level for any sort of push up and towards our pre-market highs. If we can maintain, which is underneath that 658, we can see a push down in towards our pre-market lows. Or now if we can maintain underneath that previous day lows, we can see a little bit of a bigger push towards the downside down and towards that 652. Not expecting too much today. Similar thing as yesterday, just because we do have that big war decision tonight in the overall markets. We're going to just mark out now, as I mentioned, that previous day lows to see if we do have any sort of continuation underneath that level. So that's going to be key coming to market open. We're going to mark out that 656 along with that 658 here on the SPY. So if we break above, we can see the potential gap fill, rejection. We can see a little bit more continuation towards the downside here on the overall markets. If we go on to the NQ, very similar thing here. If we're looking at this on the hourly time frame, price coming back up into the level that it broke down from, multiple touches from this area last week. Yesterday, tried getting above, but ultimately closing back inside of this range. And now you can see another rejection here in the pre-market, and we're continuing back towards the downside once again. So for the key levels on the NQ coming to market open, what I'm personally going to have marked out is our 24,240. Other levels that we have marked out here as well is going to be that 24,320. If we do want to see upside, reclaim back above that previous day low at a minimum for any sort of push back up and towards that previous day close. If we can break above that 24,360, push back up and towards that previous day highs. If we reject, we can see a continuation down in towards, now it's going to be that overnight low that we created here on Sunday. As for the QQQ, fairly similar thing here. If we're going on to the higher time frames, really yesterday it really didn't change too much, just a little bit more consolidation. But if we're looking at this on the hourly time frame, we're essentially coming right back up in towards key levels, which is our previous level of support that turned into resistance. And now you can see here for the QQQ, another little rejection here off this 592. So if the overall market does want to reject off this level, we can see a potential pushback down in towards that 580 along with that 576 here on the higher time frames. As for longs now, you either want to see it build a higher low all the way back down in towards that 576, or of course, you like to see that reclaim back above that 588. As for the levels coming into market open here today, what I'm just going to have marked out here is going to be that 586. You can readjust this level here as well if you like down in towards that previous day lows, but this is a general area that we do have. If we maintain underneath that previous day lows and that 586, we can see a push down in towards, now it's going to be that pre-market lows and our 582 and below. If we can reclaim back above that 588, then we could see a push back up and towards our previous day highs, 590. Currently, higher time frames, as I mentioned, still leaning more towards the downside. So if we're looking at this on the SPY and Qs, on the hourly time frame or even the 4-hour time frame, technically the structure is still intact here for the downside. If we do reclaim back above key levels, which of course is going to be that 660, then I'd flip a little bit more bullish and look for that news candle high that we created here from a few weeks ago. But if we do reject off this level, which it currently is, we can see a little bit more downside here in the market. Similar thing here with the Qs. If we do reject right off the area that we broke down from, 580 388, we can see a little bit more downside here on the Qs. Flip back above, as I mentioned, then we're going to be leaning more bullish for that news candle high. Okay, now let's go on to the SMH. SMH here, as you can see, just kind of ranging in between key levels. Overall, semis kind of had a nice bounce in the overall markets. But now for the SMH, just kind of ranging in between that 372 along with that 400. We can mark out equilibrium here, which is our 388. As for the levels moving forward, key levels that we can have marked out is going to be our previous day lows. We can mark this out. You can also mark out that previous day highs, which is going to be that 396. If you do want to see SMH upside, it is going to be the reclaim back above for a push back up and towards that previous day highs. Another possible scenario here is going to be that 388 bounce for that continuation back up and towards that 390s and above here as well. If we reject here off that previous day lows, then we can see that quick potential flip down in towards that 388 coming into market open. Okay, now let me go on to the IWM. If you guys do have any tickers here now as well, you guys can drop them in the chat. But as for the IWM, the key levels that we have coming into today is going to be that 252. Of course, the low of the range here is our 240. IWM, if you do want to see some upside here in the overall markets, it's going to have to be the reclaim back above that previous day highs hold for that continuation back up and towards our 253, 255 here and above. If we reject off this level, we can see a potential rejection and a push down in towards that 247. All right, now let's head on to some tech names that we do have coming into market open. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below as well. Yeah, I'll check out gold here in a second. Just a quick question. I'm still learning. Do you utilize the opening range, 15-minute strategy in conjunction with the previous established levels? Exactly. So I'll use the opening range candles primarily. I'll use the previous day highs and previous day lows. And then if let's say we're inside the middle of the range, and far away from these key levels, then we can use that opening range. You can use the 5-minute or you can use the 15-minute opening range. If the market's more choppy, then you can use the 15-minute. If we have a lot of continuation, you're expecting a big move right off the bat, then you can use the 5-minute time frame. Okay, let's talk about Tesla. So Tesla was one of our main watches towards the downside yesterday. This one relatively weak compared to the overall markets. Key levels that we had established on Tesla really was that 368. We had our previous day lows, which we ended up having that previous day low retest. And then we had a level all the way down in towards that 350. So we do have that SpaceX IPO coming up. And you can see the market's not really favoring that overall. Elon, whenever he talks about that, you can see there's usually a drop on Tesla. Now we are back inside key levels. So I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, expecting now some sort of reaction off this general area. So as you can see, we're trading back in towards that 340, which was that original consolidation, relative weakness intraday. So now I'm expecting, as I mentioned, a little bit of a lower wick here on Tesla, at least either on the monthly time frame. The weekly time frame, you can dig a little bit deeper down in towards that 340 and below. So for Tesla, this one, as I mentioned, right back in towards key levels here. Now the next level that we do have is going to be this gap all the way back down in towards that 340. So for Tesla moving forward, at least the key levels that we are going to have marked out is going to be that 352. So this is essentially our last week's lows. We had another key level marked out here as well, which is that 360. Broke underneath that 360 flip. Nice continuation back towards the downside. Now, what we like to see is it maintain underneath that 354. So key levels that we have coming to market open, as you can see yesterday, nice kind of break and retest underneath that previous day lows. Now we're underneath that 354 here as well. What I like to see is it just maintain underneath this 354 if we want to see downside moving forward. So for Tesla, nice little rejection here off our pre-market levels. If you do want to see some more downside, rejection here off that 354, continuation towards the downside. Another key level that we have marked out is going to be that previous day lows. Shorts now in play here underneath that previous day lows, 346 for continuation towards the downside. So we have that pop and fade off that 354 once again, or now shorts underneath that previous day lows for continuation. Another possible scenario, if we kind of just consolidate right off the bat, mini pop, doesn't have to come back up and towards that 354. I'd personally like it to, and then you could be looking for some sort of reclaim setup for a push down in towards the previous day low here and below. So this is what we have for Tesla coming into market open here for some downside. Of course, as I mentioned, this one is the one that does have relative weakness compared to the overall markets. So if you do want to drop here on the SPY and Qs, I do expect Tesla to continue to move towards the downside. As for any sort of upside here on Tesla, right, you could be looking for the pop. Sorry, you could be looking for the drop down in towards your previous day lows. If we do have a strong bounce, you can look for the trade back up and towards that 352. More of just a mean reversion reversal play right off the bat, up and towards that previous day close. Another possible scenario here now as well is going to be above that 352. Hold above that level. Potential continuation back up and towards that 356 here and above. This is in play, as I mentioned. This one's really more based off of just intraday price action. Of course, Tesla on the higher time frame is leaning more towards the downside, and if the market drops as well, there's a better chance to actually end up fading off this level and continuing right back towards the downside. So any sort of long positions, just be a little bit more cautious. Right, be a little bit more aggressive in your scaling, just because Tesla is relatively weak on the higher time frames. So we can be looking for the fade off these 354 levels. So that's what we have coming to market open. Tesla's still going to be one of my main watches, similar to yesterday. As for Nvidia, this one just kind of consolidation yesterday, right off that 177. I wanted to see the break and retest above our previous day highs, but really no buyer stepped in, just kind of rejected off that previous day highs and actually never closed above it here on the higher time frame. So really no setup on Nvidia yesterday. Key levels that we can have marked out now is going to be that 177 along with that previous day lows. So if we do want to see some upside, we need to see the reclaim back above our previous day lows for that push back up and towards that 177. If we do want to see some downside, either the pop and fade here off that previous day lows, push towards the downside, or if price came all the way back up and towards that previous day highs, along with that previous day close, you can be looking for another rejection here off that 177.50. So this is what we have on Nvidia coming into market open here. As for AMD, nice kind of push towards the upside yesterday. Ultimately was not able to close above this high, which was at 224. If you're looking at this on the daily time frame as well, right, you had this gap fill back towards the upside, but ultimately kind of just rejecting off this key area, as you can see on the daily time frame, not able to close inside of the gap. And now what we have here is an upper wick with sellers stepping in and pushing price back towards the downside. If you look at this here on the hourly time frame, the key levels that we have marked out now is going to be that 220 higher time frame key level here on AMD. See a nice pop, and now we're kind of fading back towards the downside. We also had a gap fill lower here as well. So moving forward on AMD, key level is going to be that 220. If we do want to reject off this level, right, you could be looking for a couple scenarios here. Number one, previous day low rejection for that continued push towards the downside off that 218. If we pop up and towards that previous day close, you can be looking for that fade off this level here as well, off that 220 back towards the downside here as well. If we reclaim back above, potential trade right off the bat is really the only scenario that we have for AMD upside coming into market open. As for Apple, this one, nice higher time frame break outside of this consolidation yesterday. We end up having this nice break, as you can see. A lot of consolidation, break above, continuation towards the upside, came up in towards our key level of resistance, and now you can see a little bit of rejection, and we're right back in towards our retest level. So Apple is something that we can keep an eye out for coming into market open. Key levels that we do have, as I mentioned, is going to be that 256. So as you can see, nice break. Now we're coming back down for that retest. Let's keep an eye out on Apple coming into market open for that push up in towards our previous day close, along with that 260, along with that 262. So that's what we have for Apple coming into market open here. I do like this one. If the markets do want to bounce coming to market open, multiple touches, now I like to see this level turn into support for that continued push back towards the upside. So let's keep an eye on Apple above our 256. As for Google, nice hold of that 294 yesterday. Next levels towards the upside is going to be that 304. So let's go back onto the lower time frames here. As for Google, key levels that we have marked out coming into market open, we can mark out that previous day highs along with our high that we created here from Wednesday of last week. So for Google, previous day lows, we have our previous day highs marked out. If we do want to see some upside coming into market open, above our previous day highs hold for that potential push towards our pre-market highs here and above. Another possible scenario on Google, if we came all the way back down, right, potential kind of bounce play here off our 294. So a few scenarios. I personally like it above our previous day highs for continuation up and towards that pre-market highs. If we do get underneath, the right, potential kind of immediate retest that you could be looking for a push down in towards that 294 here is in play as well. All right, let's go on to a few other tickers here. What we have is Microsoft. So Microsoft lagging behind, just a little bit more consolidation. Microsoft above our 374. We can see a potential flip and a push back up and towards our 376 here and above. Microsoft, of course, if you are looking at the higher timeframes, has been fairly weak. But this one, if we can get above that 374, we can see some continuation higher. You can see touch here, multiple touches above our 374, hold above that level. We can see a push up in towards that 377. If we reject off this level, then we can see a push down in towards that 370 and potentially below, which will be that 368 here on Microsoft. As for a few other tickers here, what we have is Meta. This one, nice push up in towards that 585 yesterday, gapping up above our previous day highs, but kind of filling the gap back towards the downside. So on the higher time frames here on Meta, we're currently kind of rejecting off our previous level of support, now trying to turn into resistance. So as you can see here, that's why it's a very key level 580, break back above our 580, continuation higher, rejection off that 580. Currently we're forming a upper wick. You can see a couple sellers kind of stepping in right off our key level, sellers stepping in once again. Now for Meta, the key levels that we're going to have marked out is going to be that 588 along with our previous day lows. And we can just mark out this general area, which is going to be that 572. If we maintain underneath that 572, we can see continuation down in towards that 560 potentially. And below here, if we can reclaim, then we can see a push back up and towards that 580 on Meta. All right, let me go on to a couple more tickers here. Amazon key levels that we have marked out coming to market open, 213. This one's consolidating just a little bit more here, just based off the daily time frame. If we're looking at this, what we have is the daily chart. We're just kind of consolidating here. What we have formed is just this period of consolidation. You can kind of mark this out. If we have a rejection here off this right shoulder, we can see this continuation back towards the downside. Invalidate this right shoulder, we can see that push back up and towards that 220, which is the high that we created earlier from March. So Amazon, just mark out this key level here, 212 on the higher time frames. And as you can see, right, you have multiple touches right off this level here on Amazon. As for Netflix, this one was one of my main ones I was keeping an eye out for yesterday, but ultimately huge upper wick on the 15-minute time frame. Sellers stepping in right off the bat. You can see how big of a opening candle that we had on that 15-minute time frame. So this one most likely was just going to come back and fill the gap that we had towards the downside. So for Netflix, as you can see, nice push towards the highs, but some sellers are stepping in right off this key area. Now, if we go back onto the lower time frames, what we have marked out coming into today is still going to be that 99 along with that 100 key psych. If you want to see continuation higher, right, we need to see one of two things: reclaim back above 99 for this continued push back towards the upside. Another possible scenario, bounce play here off our 98 for that continuation back up and towards that highs that we have created here as well. As for Netflix, really not interested in any sort of short. We did reject off key levels, but this one very relatively strong compared to the overall markets. We could see a potential kind of rejection here off this 100 and a push towards the downside, but I do like Netflix, right? This one, as I mentioned, relatively strong compared to the overall market, plus a higher time frame thesis. I wouldn't be as interested in shorting this name. Okay. Now, with that being said, that was most of the tickers or most of the tech names coming to market open. Now I'm going to go on to a few other tickers here. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers as well, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate it if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that is also in the description below here as well. Okay, let me go on to a couple names. See some of you guys typing in gold. Yeah, I'll check out gold here in a second. But let's first start off on Palantir. So as you can see here, if we're looking at Palantir on the hourly time frame, really not too much has happened on this ticker. We're just kind of coming back into a key level of resistance that we have marked out, which is that 150. You can see multiple touches traded up and towards that 150 yesterday. Nice little rejection. Now we're kind of fading off this level. If we reject off that 150, once again, a push down in towards that 144 here is in play. Longs on Palantir would have to be above that 150 for any sort of continuation towards the upside. EVGO did have some news here in the pre-market. Let's kind of take a look at this one on the higher time frames. So currently we are on the daily chart on AVGO. If you even zoom out here onto the weekly time frame, this one is fairly bullish, as you can see, right? Higher lows very much well being built. Now we're just kind of coming back into this period of consolidation. Earnings when we had that original gap up. As you can see, multiple buyers are stepping in. What I would like to see here on AVGO, as you can see, weekly candle, right, printed in, fairly bullish. Now I'd like to see this trade back towards the top of the range that we have, which is that 340 on AVGO. So this one, fairly bullish here on the higher time frames. Higher lows are being built. Let's see if we can get that continuation back towards the upside. If you go back onto the lower time frames, other levels that we have marked out coming into today, let's just kind of refine this level. It is just going to be this level right here, which is our 326. As you can see, touches here in the pre-market and touches back from earlier in the month, which was that 326. So for AVGO coming into market open here, it's going to have to get underneath, or sorry, get above that level if you do want to see any sort of continuation. Nice gap up in towards that 326. If you do want to see any sort of continuation higher, we need it above our 326 for continuation, or above our pre-market highs for that push towards the upside. What we don't want to see is the rejection right off the bat and a potential gap fill back towards the downside, right? This is not what we want to see. If we do want to see continuation above that 326. All right, let's go on to MU. This one on the higher time frames, reclaiming back above our 370 here as well. So for MU, as you can see, nice strong bounce. We kind of talked about this one, right? Look at this weekly time frame. Wicked underneath, did not close underneath that candle here as well. So this week's candle, we can see a little bit of a deeper retracement and then right push back towards the upside, defending this 360. So for MU, the key levels that I have marked out moving forward is going to be that 360. And then we also have our 370 marked out coming into today. So for MU, what I would like to see, it's a pretty big level that we have drawn out, but there is room down in towards that 365. As you can see, multiple touches here as well. So for MU, what I would like to see is the hold above our 364. We have our previous day lows marked out here as well. We have our 364. So for MU, I'd like to either see the bounce right off the bat above our previous day lows for continuation back towards the upside. Another possible scenario here is going to be the bounce play off our 364 on the higher time frames to kind of build these higher lows as well. So for MU, reclaiming back above key levels. Now what I'd just like to see is it maintain above really that 360 on the higher time frames for that pushback towards the upside. If we're looking at SNDK, another one, nice little gap up with MU. Now gapping up over the weekend. Now we're having a little bit of a pullback. For SNDK, the key levels that we have marked out is our 690. So this is the key level that we have drawn out on the higher time frames. This one can come back down in towards that 680, push back up in towards that 760 here on the higher time frames. Intel continue to move up here. Western Digital, another one that's kind of pushed towards the upside. Let's go on to gold here. This one just kind of consolidating with the overall markets. Once we had that original push towards the downside, reclaim back above key levels. As for gold, the key levels that we have marked out is our 4640s here. As you can see, multiple touches. Now we're using this as a retest. What we just like to see is it maintain above this level if we want to see any sort of continuation back towards the upside here. Basically our 4800. As for USO, as you can see, oil's still climbing, so not really a good sign for the overall indices in the stock market in general. But as you can see, overall, nice break and retest here on USO that we kind of talked about here on the daily chart. Key levels that we have marked out was this previous level of resistance that now turned into support. Gap up that we had last week, and now you can see the overall markets are sustaining. So key levels that we can have marked out, previous day highs, drag this down. So key levels coming into USO is just going to be that previous day highs 140. So as you can see here, just draw out this general area, maintain above that 140, continuation towards the upside. If we reject, then of course we can see a flip and a push towards the downside. Okay. So coming into market open, the game plan coming into today is just going to keep an eye out on our previous day lows along with that previous day close. Not expecting too much today with the deadline that we have tonight. So kind of similar thing to yesterday. We're just going to be a little bit more patient, wait for some more news here in the overall markets. As for my levels, I'm just going to keep an eye on that previous day lows here. So if we reject, we can potentially look for that fade for a push down in towards that pre-market lows here and below coming to market open. Of course, if we reclaim, we're going to see a push back up in towards that previous day close. Main watch towards the downside. Tesla, of course, this one was weak yesterday. It's basically weak the past couple of days ever since we had the delivery numbers out. We'll keep an eye on Tesla off that 352 along with that previous day lows. And then as for the rest of the names, we'll keep an eye out on Nvidia previous day lows, AMD previous day lows here as well. Names that I like for the upside, if the markets do want to bounce, Apple potentially off that 256. And then Google relatively holding up. And then we do have Netflix here for some upside. So overall markets leaning a little bit more towards the downside coming to market open, but fairly neutral, fairly similar to yesterday. Still going to be interested in, as I mentioned, Tesla downside. And then we could keep an eye out on the semiconductors underneath our previous day lows here as well. As I mentioned, the main thing tonight is the deadline that we do have with the war news. So we'll keep in mind for that. And yeah, besides that, I am going to call it a day here. Hopefully you guys did enjoy that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below as well. All right, take care everyone. Peace.